All right, guys, what we're going to look at today is integers, adding and subtracting, multiplying and dividing, and squares, exponents, and square roots. So let's start with our integers. Okay, adding two positives together, of course, is a positive. If I add a negative, okay, what I'm really doing is subtracting said negative. 3 minus 3, which becomes 0. Okay. Now, it doesn't matter where the negative is. Okay, let's say we had something like this. I would rewrite this as 20 minus 15, which would be 5. Now, you could get a negative answer when you're adding them. Okay. Let's say it's negative 25 plus 20. Okay, like so. Well, we know when we're adding them together that the 20 is going to cancel out and there's going to be negative 5 left over just looking at it. Or you could do 20 minus 25, and we know that there's still 5 in the whole for a negative 5 answer. So that's adding integers. Subtracting integers, you got to take a rule into account. Okay, so let's do 10 minus negative 5, like so. The rule is you change both signs, and this becomes 15. If I had negative 10 minus 12, something like that, don't rewrite it. Once there's an integer, change the sign, and that's going to be negative 22. Okay. 15 minus a negative 8 is really going to be 23. So change the sign of both if one of them is a negative. Now, if it's multiple things like 10 plus 6 minus negative 7, the rule still is in effect, and you follow your order of operations. Our answer here would be 23. Okay, left to right on the order of operations. Okay, so that's subtraction. Change the sign. So adding them is, so let's say if we had two negatives and we wanted to add them together, then this would be a negative 6. Okay, negative 3 plus a negative 3 is a negative 6. Negative 3 minus negative 3 is actually 0 because we got to change the sign. Multiplying and dividing. Okay. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If I have a positive times a positive, my answer is positive. So, positive times or divided by a positive gives me a positive. A positive times a negative gives me a negative. So, a positive times or divided by a negative number gives me a negative. Two negatives multiplied together gives me a positive. So negative times or divided by another negative gives me a positive answer. Okay. Now it's important to remember your order of operations here, because let's say I had something like 3 times negative 3 minus negative 9. Okay, and I want to do this. Well, 3 times negative 3, I got to do that first, is negative 9. Negative 9 then minus negative 9, change the sign on both, and my answer becomes 0. I wouldn't take this first. Okay, I have to do the multiplication first. So, multiplying integers and dividing, the sign is important. Two positives make a positive. A positive and a negative make a negative. Two negatives make a positive. So what if I had, for instance then, something like this. Negative 15 divided by negative 5 times negative 3. Well, I do my order of operations. Since they're both multiplication and division, I'd go left to right. Negative 15 divided by negative 5. So a negative divided by a negative, which would be a positive 3, times a negative 3 would give me a negative 9. So 3 negatives together, then it's a negative. Now let's say we took this and we said, okay, now we're going to multiply it by negative 3 on top of it. Well, we have this answer here, negative 9 times a negative 3, which would be now positive because it's 2 negatives. So you have to watch your signs. Negative times a negative will give me a positive. Then take your next step. Now it's a positive times a negative, which will give me a negative, and so on and so forth. Okay? So stay organized. That's the key to integers. Stay organized. Okay? So, squares and exponents. A number raised to an exponent, like so, just tells you how many times you're going to multiply them together. So 3 squared just means 3 times 3. 4 to the third or 4 cubed means 4 times 4 times 4. Okay, so this would be 9. This would be, what, 16 times 4, which is 64. Okay. What if it's a negative number? Negative 3, now we won't raise them to negative powers, but what if it's negative 3 squared? Well, now you take in your rules. How many times am I multiplying it? Negative 3 times negative 3. I'm doing it twice. So negative times a negative is 9. What if it was negative 4 cubed? Negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. All right, negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. I'm going to multiply that by negative 4, and I end up with negative 64. Okay, so that's how exponents work. Whatever number your number is raised to, that's how many times you multiply it. And then on the other hand, there's something called square roots. All right, we're not going to do cube roots, but square roots are this fancy number like a thing like that. And essentially what a square root is what number times itself will give you the number underneath. So the square root of 16, what times? So 4 times 4, so the answer is the square root of 16 is 4. The square root of 49, what times itself will give you 49? That's 7. We're not going to deal with negative square roots. That's something else. But what else could be the square root of 49? Well, negative 7 could also be, because negative 7 times negative 7 is 49. Negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. So what you might see as a square root, so let's see, a square root of 25. All right, 5 times 5 is 25. So is the negative. So what you'll see as the answer is plus or minus 5, like so. Okay. 36 would be plus or minus 6. Okay. We'll only deal with whole number square roots. All right, and what we're doing, we're not going to deal with, like if I had, let's say, 37 here, so it's 6 and change. But realize that the positive or the negative could be the answer for the square root because of the rules. Okay, plus or minus. All right, so that's square roots and your introduction to adding and subtracting integers. All right, try the work online and let me know if you have any problems.